Annual reports are one of the most common types of report, and they're among the least engaging. There are good reasons for that. By examining why annual reports are often boring, we can learn how to make any report much more impactful.
To learn how to better write, communicate, edit and design content, like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell.
Firstly, the authors of annual reports often set themselves the wrong ambition. They feel the purpose of their report is to chronicle, for the record, all the events of the year. That naturally leads to trying to fill such reports with as much information and data as possible. People make this mistake when creating many types of report, annual or otherwise. Instead, all content authors should aspire for their work to be read, watched or listened to. If that doesn't happen, there's no reason for it to exist. It may as well just be left shut in a drawer. So all content creators, including the authors of annual reports and other types of report, should set themselves a single primary ambition for their work, for it to actually be consumed by their audience. Therefore, they should first work to make it readable, watchable, or appealing to listen to. A good report pushes against something. It reports progress against a target, an ambition or a goal, and as such it should be shaped as a story. For example, an annual report should detail an organisation's progress through the year, as it took actions to meet that goal of having made progress. It should chronicle the advances made and the reversals, the challenges and how they were overcome. But it should always maintain the focus on the goal, and if and how the organisation reached it. Reports, of course, can take many forms. They can be short or long. But as with all content, remember that less is more. Rather than add in all the information you have to hand, edit that information down into a final report that others will actually want to read and pay attention to. You must select, filter and corral the wealth of information that you have to hand to create a narrative, a report that tells a factual story. So you should create a report that has a meaningful introduction, a consistent theme, content that progresses a story, and an ending that cements the story in your readers' minds. Just as with presentations, don't introduce your report with a table of contents, or even a long, convoluted foreword from a senior figure in the organisation. Use the same technique as you should with powerful presentations. Introduce your report with a simple, short, powerful statement. This could be a sentence, a question, a quote, a fact, a short paragraph, or even a piece of data. But it should reflect the theme of the report overall and communicate in some way the report's main take-home message. Although authorship is vital, you can add in who is the author of the report in an unobtrusive, subtle way. A name, a job title, and a few paragraphs outlining their qualifications to author the report are often enough. You note the author to give authority to what the report says, not to promote their personal brand. So there's no need to devote a whole page or even a spread to the author and their life story. The only exception to that is if the author forms a fundamental part of the story told by the report, in which case then it can be useful to detail relevant aspects of their personality or their experiences and character. Many reports are institutionally authored, so they have no need of an author page or biography. A key reason not to devote much space to the author at the report's beginning is because that space should be devoted to your report's introduction. And as with all good content, that introduction should be as engaging and impactful as possible. Every piece of content that comes before this introduction is a barrier to your audience and their understanding of what your report says. Depending on the discipline of their author, reports may sometimes have to adhere to exacting prescribed structures. So You may not be allowed to follow a narrative structure. For example, reports of scientific discoveries are published as scientific papers in scientific journals. Though each journal will be different, these generally follow a structure followed by all science papers. In sequence, they begin with an abstract, then an introduction, methodology, results, and then conclusions. Each is a defined section. The abstract reports a summary of the research. The introduction isn't the same as an editorial introduction. In a science paper, the introduction is the context. The story of the research starts at the beginning, laying out an explanation of the current state of scientific knowledge and the context needed to understand why the latest research was conducted. The methodology then details the exact observational or experimental steps taken and the equipment used, so others may faithfully replicate the work. Then the results outline the data collated during any observation or experimentation. And finally, the conclusions try to make sense of the results. In a science paper, it's here, right at the end, that the researchers deliver the main point of their research, which is what they've learned, what they've discovered. Other professions demand reports are structured in other bespoke ways. If you work in a profession that requires reports are delivered to a certain format and structure, you must of course continue with that. Otherwise you'll immediately lose authority and the respect of your peers. Your report will look odd and out of place. But you can still integrate some of the lessons discussed in this course. For example, many scientific reports don't actually clearly signpost the main point of the research. As a science editor, I've reported stories based on thousands of academic papers, and it's surprisingly common to read a scientific research paper and still not understand what the main point of it is supposed to be. That may be because the researchers focus too much on the details of their work and not on its very reason for being. Or they talk too much about what they did and how they did it, and not enough about why they did it and what they found. Or they may fail to include or properly signpost the main point of their work, either because it didn't have one, they didn't know it, or they haven't learnt to communicate it effectively, which is a huge waste of effort. Because unless they can communicate the work they've done, it has little value to the wider community. Now, in a science paper, the abstract is the one editorial device that actually makes it accessible. A good abstract acts like a powerful introduction, summarising the point and value of the research, instantly engaging the reader. The introduction to your report should do the same. However, also bear in mind that poor science abstracts just précis the introduction, the methodology, the result, and the conclusion. It places little or no emphasis on the story that the overall report is trying to tell, which, remember, is to properly communicate how the researchers met their goal of increasing our scientific knowledge. Try to avoid making that mistake. As well as being properly structured, a captivating report should also be well designed. Reports can include only text, but if you want people to pay attention to it, think about how you might visually communicate aspects of your report. The best reports are designed more like magazines. They embrace the techniques used to get people to look at the pages and read the content. They use powerful photographs, impactful graphics, and insightful data and graphs. And as with well-designed presentations, captivating reports actually contain white or negative space, where there's no content. These blank areas are actually some of the most important on your page. They allow the audience to easily scan those messages you're communicating, and it improves legibility. One study has shown that the use of white space between paragraphs and in the left and right margins can increase comprehension of the reader by almost 20%. Reports don't have to be boring to read. Structure and design yours well, and you can create a report that tells a captivating story.
All you have to do is like and subscribe to this channel to watch the full course of more than 90 videos for free, or visit Amazon to access the 450-page factual storytelling handbook.